Join me as we learn Chumash for Tuesday, Parshas Acharei Mos-Kedoshim, when the Torah readings of Acharei Mos and Kedoshim are combined. We are now at chapter 17, verse 8. Yesterday we started learning about the exclusive venue of where the sacrifices should be brought. Today we continue with laws pertaining to sacrifices and forbidden parts of the sacrifices like the blood, or when things can make somebody impure, as well as the forbidden relationships, as we'll see later on in this Torah reading. Verse 8. V'aleim toimar, and you should say to them, Ish me beis Yisrael, anyone from the house of Israel, min ager asher yager b'seichem, from the convert that dwells amongst them, asher yala iloi zavach, that would want to bring a sacrifice, either in a scent offering or a peace offering, as a sacrifice. Rashi, asher yala oila, that will bring in a scent offering. This includes that it obligates and it's forbidden to the same as if that a person is liable to have capital punishment, meaning to die prematurely, same too as if the person who brings the limbs outside the camp, as if somebody who slaughters it there. That if one person slaughtered it and the other person is the one that brought it as a sacrifice, they're both liable of this death penalty. And did not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting. Lastly, says to Hashem to make it for God. And that person will be cut off from his people, meaning he will die prematurely. V'nichras, as Rashi translates, Zari nichrasa v'yam of nichrasin. His children die young, and he also dies prematurely. Verse 10. V'ish, now telling us about the forbidden consumption of blood. V'ish mi beis Yisrael, and so to any man from amongst you. From the convert that lives amongst you, that will eat blood, that will consume blood. And I will set my attention upon that individual. And that individual that it consumes the blood. And I will cut him off from among the people, meaning they will die prematurely. Verse 11. Rashi, kol dam. Because it says that the person is going to be atoned by his soul. I would think that only time that a person is the only blood that's forbidden is blood that was brought as a sacrifice. Therefore, the Torah comes along and says, kol dam, all blood is forbidden. And I will put my attention, I will take away everything that I'm doing, and I will focus, and I will stop everything that I'm doing, just focus my attention on this individual. Verse 11, because the soul and the flesh is dependent on the blood. Because the soul and the flesh is dependent on blood. And I gave it to you, that thereby you should, upon the altar, just for you. For what? That you to atone for your souls. So that for blood that can atone for the soul. Rashi. Because every single creation is dependent on blood. Therefore, I told you to put it on the altar, to atone for the soul in the individual, that by sprinkling the blood of the sacrifices, this will be an atonement for the individual. Let the soul come and atone for the soul. Verse 12. Therefore I told the Jewish people, every one of you should not consume any blood. And all the converts amongst you who live amongst you should not consume blood as well. That the old should warn the young about it as well. So too, verse 13. And if any one of you, of the Jewish people, from the convert that lives amongst you, that will trap a wild animal, an animal, a domestic animal, a wild animal or a fowl, and that are permissible for consumption, meaning that it's permitted to eat, kosher. What you need to do first is, when he sheds its blood, and you must cover it with dust. This is only by a wild animal and bird, not a domestic animal. Rashi, Asher Yotzud, Ein li elatzayit. I only know about those that I trap. What about the ducks and chickens, minayin, how do I know that I also have to cover their blood? Talmud Leimar, therefore it says tseid, that they are trapped, meaning mikol makim, in any case, in any of these, any trappings, any type of, any game of wild animals or fowl. Im kein laman amar asher yatzut. So then why does it have to say those that he would trap if he's, what's the differentiation? That the only time that he can eat this type of meat is only when it means that he has to work hard to trap it, to eat it, and the reason is that a person shouldn't get so used to eating that much meat, because then if he has too much meat, as the Talmud says in the tractate of Chulin, too much meat brings a person to poverty. And therefore the Torah says that you have to put a little effort into getting the meat, therefore you shouldn't take it easily to eat it that much. This is the Talmud of Chulin discusses this at length. Asher ya'achil, prat l'tmeim, that will be eaten, besides those that are that you're not allowed to eat, which is the non-kosher ones, which the non-kosher ones, even if a person slaughtered them, he does not have to cover their blood. Verse 14. Ki nefesh kol basar dame benafshayu, because the soul of every living flesh is dependent on blood. V'oimar livnei Yisrael, and I tell to the Jewish people, dam kol basar leisechelu, you must not consume any blood. Ki nefesh kol basar damahi, because for the soul of any flesh is its blood. And therefore those that eat it will be cut off. Rashi, damay benafshay, who? Who? What does it mean, who? Even though it's a soul. Who loibim kema nefesh. That means the actual blood of the animal is considered as the actual soul. Shanefesh tluya, because the blood is dependent, the soul is dependent on the blood, and therefore the blood is as if it's the soul. Ki nefesh kol basar damayu, hanefesh hi adam. It's telling us now in the female terminology, meaning that the soul is the actual blood. Ubasar, flesh, is lashon zachar, male. Nefesh is dam ubasar, lashon zachar. Blood and flesh is a male terminology. Nefesh, and nefesh is female, is feminine, lashon nekeva. And therefore, when he uses the word he or who, depending on which reverse he would be going on. And that's why in both places it says dam moi and does not say damma, because it's referring on the flesh. Verse 15. V'chol nefesh asher teichel nevelo treifa. Now he goes to about eating. We spoke about blood that is forbidden. Now we talk about as well forbidden animal, forbidden bird. V'chol nefesh asher teichel nevelo treifa. And any soul, any person, whether native or a convert, as we're going to see, who eats a forbidden who eats any type of fowl, which may be permitted for consumption, but at the moment it's a devela or a treifa, meaning that it would not survive, or it was dead, killed not by slaughtering. Bager, whether it's be'ezrach, whether it's the native bager or the convert, v'chibes begadav, he has to wash his clothing, v'rachatz b'mayim, and he has to immerse him in water, v'tamei ad ha'arav, and he is impure until the evening, v'tayr, and only then will he be cut rid of his defilement. 15, Rashi, asher teichel nevelo treifa, that will eat a bird that either has not been slaughtered or not healthy, and therefore will die on its own. Benivlas oif tayr diberakasav. This is talking about a nevela of a kosher bird. She'ein la tuma, that the only way one becomes impure from it, elo b'shash nivlo beis avli, is only once he swallows the actual meat. And therefore the Torah is teaching us here shematama bechilas matama b'maga, that you only, because of the word that the Torah uses, asher teichal, that you will eat it. So therefore the only time you become impure is when you eat it, not when you touch it, in contrast to the other animals that are when you touch it you already become impure. Treifa amurakan leinichtaf alolidresh, that the words treifa, the rabbis explain that the word when it says treifa here is to be able to learn to expound from it. V'chein shaninu, and this is what we learned, that we're talking about different kinds of birds. V'chein shaninu, so we learned yachol teini v'lasef tamim mitama beis abliya. I would think that the carcass of a bird should also impurify a person even just by swallowing it, like a clean bird, Talmud Leimar, like a kosher bird, Talmud Leimar, nevelo treifa. Therefore the Torah puts together the words nevelo treifa. Mi sheyesh b'mini treifa, only the kind of bird that has a treifa that can be, that its actual carcass will make the person impure. Yatzaif tame, this excludes a non-kosher bird, that it does not have the same laws of treifa to it. So what we see over here, that the Torah is talking about, that even though, because you're not allowed to eat it anyway, there doesn't have to be a treifa not to eat it. So over here the Torah is talking about, regardless whether it's birds that are kosher or non-kosher, they are they only come. They do not they do not make a person impure when he touches it. That's only by the actual animals. When it comes to a bird, a kosher bird, eating a kosher bird that was not slaughtered or ill, he would only become impure when eating it. Verse 16, if he does not wash his clothes, he does not immerse himself in the mikveh, and he does not immerse himself in the mikveh, he will then bear the sin. Rashi, if during doing this he then goes into the holy temple or he eats from holy food, he will then be liable for such impurity, which the punishment in this case means to be cut off, dying prematurely, like it is by all the other like all the other impurities. But concerning not immersing himself, the punishment is premature death. Al kibus begadim, and not washing his clothing, malchus is only lashes. Chapter 18, verse 1. We are now going to go into the next step, which the Torah tells us about the forbidden relationships. One of the reasons why the Torah has to tell us about the forbidden relationships, and the first one that it discusses is about the forbidden relationships pertaining to family, and incest, is because one may say, well, the earlier generations, Adam, his children married into each other, Jacob, their children married into each other, Abraham looked for their own family, and therefore the Torah makes it clear who and which ones one is allowed to marry. And God spoke to Moshe saying, Israel, speak to the Jewish people, you will tell them, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am their God. What does it mean? Why does God begin by saying, I am their God? I am the one that said at Sinai, I am the God. You accepted my sovereignty, and now you have to accept my decrees. Rebbe explains, why does he say here, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am your God? I know, and it is revealed, God realized that yes, many Jews may become promiscuous and not follow all the laws of the forbidden relationships in the time of Ezra. Therefore God says, comes with them in a decree and says, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am God. You should know me, who is the one that's making this decree. I am the God that's making the decree, that you can trust that I will punish those who go against my will, and you can trust I will reward those that follow in the proper way. Verse 3. You must not imitate the practices of Egypt, that you were dwelt there. Leisasu you should not do. And do not imitate the practices of the people of Canaan. That I'm bringing you there. Leisasu you should not do those. And do not follow in their social conventions as well. Rashi, verse 3. It's telling us, that the activity and the actions of the people of Egypt and of the Canaanites was the worst of all nations. It is telling us that exact places where the Jewish people lived, those were the worst out of all places. Meaning, in the land of Goshen, that was the worst of all places, even in all of the land of Egypt. Magid, it's teaching us that those nations that the Jewish people conquered were worse than all the other nations. You should not go in their ways. Why did the Torah, what did the Torah say, so to speak, or didn't say? Like it said, don't go in their ways, and repeats it again, don't go in their ways. What is the Torah alluding to that it doesn't say clearly? These type of customs or these type of behaviors that the non-Jews have taken upon themselves. That's why he calls it chukei seim, their way of life. Things that they've made part of their way of life. Kigoyin, for example, tartiyoyis, v'tztadoyis, their theaters and their places of frivolity. Their conventions, their places where they get together in engaging in inappropriate practices. Rameir says, Elu darkei amoidu shemanu chachamim. These were the different things that the ways of the Amorites that the sages allude to and detail in the tractate of Shabbos and in other places as well. Verse 4. Es mishpatai tasu. You must perform my ordinances. Ves chukosai tishmru. And you must safeguard my laws. V'tilachleches bem, to go in them, ani Hashem Elokechem, I am your God. Rashi, es mishpatai tasu. These are the laws that the Torah talks about, the regular, simple, moral, ethical laws, whether it's not to steal, not to kill, and so on. That even if the Torah hasn't mentioned them, one would have to make sure to keep them. Those are the things that are the decree of the king. That the evil inclination tries to convince the individual and tell him, why am I keeping these laws? This is the nations of the world that may make fun of you. Why are you keeping this? For example, eating non-kosher or wearing shatnez, things that don't have any seemingly rationale to it, and they'll say, why are you keeping these old-fashioned laws? And therefore the Torah says, Ani Hashem, I am God. I decreed it upon you, and you have no right to be able to excuse yourself from it. Lalechas behem, to go in them, meaning al tipater mitoichem, don't excuse yourself from it. Shalei teimar limadeti chachmas Yisrael elech ve'olmat chachmas umis. A person should say, oh well, I studied everything the Torah has to offer, let me go learn what other religions have to offer. Therefore the Torah says, lalechas behem, you have to indulge yourself with it, you have to be occupied with it. This should be your main occupation, and don't excuse and say, oh, I'm done with it. Verse 5, you will then watch my laws, you will safeguard my rules, my ordinances, that a person would do them, and you will live by them, Ani Hashem, I am God. This comes to include now all the other details of the laws of the Torah, that the Torah does not put into actual detail. Another explanation, showing that the protecting and watching and doing that also applies to laws which are not understood. Shmira, and so to watch and to do to laws which are self-understood. Because in the previous verse, he only put doing to laws which are self-understood, which are rational and ethical. And to watch those that are seemingly super rational. Therefore, he says that they both apply to each one of them. And you will live by them. Not only in this world, but also in the world to come. If a person says that the explanation means in this world, but I'm going to die, who cares? So therefore, he says this is also going to take you to the world to come as well. As another explanation, as we know in Jewish law tells us, that all the laws that a person has to keep, he has to live by it, meaning that life supersedes any of the commandments, that if there's a question between life and death, besides the 3 cardinal laws, it is life that a person has to choose to be able to continue to do the mitzvahs. Ani Hashem, I am God. Nemen l'shalim schar, you can trust that I will pay you your reward. Verse 6, now the Torah goes into telling us the forbidden relationships. Ish. No man or woman. El kol she'er b'sadir l'sikrivu l'galis erva ani Hashem. No man or woman may come near to any of his close relatives to uncover their nakedness. Ani Hashem, I am God. L'sikrivu. This is lahazir and a keva kazachar. He uses a plural terminology, even though he starts off with saying ish, but it goes in plural to tell us that the female and male, it's the same. To any of the prohibitions of the forbidden relationships, the male and female are equally forbidden. Therefore uses a plural terminology. Ani Hashem, I am God, you can trust that I will pay the reward. The same way I tell you have to be careful to avoiding to do the wrong thing, so too I will pay the reward for doing the right thing. Verse 7, you must not uncover the nakedness of your father, or the nakedness of your mother. Your mother, you must therefore not uncover her nakedness. Rashi, when it talks about the nakedness of your father, this is referring to the wife of your father. For example, if he was born from another mother. Or does it mean his father himself? How do we know that it means the wife of the father? Because being that it says later on by the punishments in verse 20, in chapter 20, verse 11, over there it says, Ervas Eishes Aviv. So to over here, it's Eishes Aviv, the wife of his father. For Ervas Amicha, the nakedness of the mother, Lahavi, this comes to include Imay She'ene Eishes Aviv, his mother who is not the wife of his father. For example, if she was raped or whatever it may be in any way. Verse 8. Ervas Eishes Avicha Leisigale, Ervas Avicha Hi. You must not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife. It is still considered your father's nakedness. Verse 8, Ervas Eishes Avicha, L'Rabbis Achar Misa. This comes to tell us that even after the father dies, he is not allowed to marry, the son is not allowed to marry the father's wife. Verse 9. Ervas Achoischa, the nakedness of your sister. Bas Avicha, even if she's only your half-sister. Oibasi Mecha, or the mother, she must be the daughter of your father or the daughter of your mother. Meiledes Bayis, whether she was born and is allowed to remain in his home. Oy Meiledes Chuds, or she was a woman, she was born and must be sent out of the home. Loi Sigali Ervasan, you must not uncover their nakedness of any sister. What does this mean? Born in the home, out of the home, Rashi explains. Bas Avicha, the daughter of your father. Af Basanusa Kamashma, even one who was a daughter of your father because he was inappropriate with another woman. Meiledes Bayis oy Meiledes Chutz, one that's in the home or out of the home. Bein she'emrim le'lavicha kayim asima b'veisach. Whether they tell to your father, keep this mother, keep this woman in your home, that means you're allowed to be with her in the home. Or they tell him, get this mother, meaning out of your home. Let's say she was from a previous relationship or a forbidden relationship, so therefore this woman is a woman who is not allowed to marry anybody else, so therefore they tell her that she should not be living in the house. Regardless of the situation, she's considered your sister because she was born to your father, and therefore you're not allowed to have any relationship with her. Verse 10. Erves bas bincha bas bitcha, regarding the nakedness of your son or daughter, or your daughter, of your son's daughter, bas bincha, your son's daughter, bas bitcha, your daughter's daughter, loy segal ervasan, you should not uncover their nakedness. Why? Kervasacha heina, because they are your own nakedness. Rashi, ervas bas bincha. What does this mean? This is talking about a prohibition. It's either a son and daughter who were born from a forbidden and promiscuous relationship. When we talk about the prohibition about his daughter or his daughter's daughter, that were born to him from his wife, that were born with a proper marriage, that we learn from Evras Ishobita, that's the nakedness of your wife and daughter. Over here, what it's talking about is talking about one that was born even from another man as well. Ervas bas bincha, kal v'chomer lebitcha. If the daughter of your son, how much more so to your own daughter? Why does the Torah have to enumerate each one? If there's one that's a closer relationship, if one that's a further relationship, how much more so a closer relationship? And that is because there's a rule that we cannot warn somebody from a kal v'chomer. That means I can't make a calculation, say, if you should have known, if you're not allowed to do that, you're not allowed to do this. Everything has to be clearly stated, and therefore, everything is learned from either an inference of two same words that mentioned, but not from a kal v'chomer, because when it comes to a warning, it has to be calculated clearly and decisively, saying what he's not allowed to do. Verse 11. Ervas bash eisas avicha, regarding the nakedness of your father's wife's daughter, so meiledes avicha, achoischahi leisigal avarsa. The one who is born to your father, meaning she's considered your sister, and therefore whose nakedness you must not uncover. Verse 11, Rashi, Ervers bash esavicha, limeid she'ine chayav al achois mishivcha v'nachris. Why does it tell us the nakedness of the wife of his father, meaning that he is not obligated, there's no obligation when it comes to the sister from a maidservant or a non-Jew. Therefore, it uses a terminology, the wife of your father, one that you are allowed to marry. Because when it comes that a Jewish slave is married to his maidservant, that's not considered a proper marriage, and therefore those are not considered one that he's of a relationship to. Verse 12. You must not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister, even if she's only your father's half-sister, she is the close relative of your father. Verse 13, you must not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister. Why? For she is a relative, because she is a close relative of your mother. Verse 14, the nakedness of your father's brother you must not reveal. You must not approach his wife, which means your aunt. Leisikrav, you should not come close to her. Because she is your aunt. Rashi, Mahi Ervasei, and the Torah explains what is Al Ishta Leisikarev, because to his wife you should not come close. Verse 15, Ervas Kalascha Leisigali, you must not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law. Eishes binchahi, she's the wife of your son. Leisigal Ervasa, you have no right, and therefore you must not reveal her nakedness. Verse 15, Eishes bincha. Why does it have to say about the daughter-in-law? What am I talking about? Only to a one that your son has a relationship, meaning a proper marriage to. This excludes one who has an inappropriate relationship, or a maidservant or a non-Jew, that those cases that the marriage does not exist by them, that those are not included in this prohibition. Verse 16, you must not uncover the nakedness of your brother's wife. You should not reveal. She is your brother's nakedness. Verse 17. You must not uncover the nakedness of a woman or her daughter. As bas benav, as bas bita. Neither you must take her into marriage, her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter. You must not take her to uncover the nakedness. Why? Because they are close relatives with you, and therefore such a union is the counsel is of your evil inclination, and therefore one should not do it. Rashi, Ervas Ishobita, the Torah didn't prohibit, meaning the daughter of his wife and so to the daughter of the son and the granddaughter, only for the first proper relationship of marriage. Therefore it says don't take. Where in other places, where you talk them appropriately. So too when it comes to punishment, when a person marries the mother, the wife and the daughter, that they are liable of capital punishment. And also the terminology is called kicha, aval, anas, isha, mutar, lisabita. However, if a person was inappropriate with a woman, whether raped or whatever it may be, in that case, then he's allowed to be and marry the daughter. It is only talking about when the word yikach, taking an appropriate for marriage, then he can't have the daughter as well. She'erahena, krevis, zulzu, they're too close, they're relatives to one another. Zima, the word zima means eitza, it's bad advice. Who are you getting this bad advice from? Eitza, schitten, yitzcha, yitzcha lachate. This is bad advice that's coming from your evil inclination, telling you to marry these individuals. Verse 18, you must not take a woman and her sister, because this way they will be rivals, to uncover their nakedness and upon another while they're still alive in their lifetime. Elachaisa, shtein ke'echas, meaning to marry both of them as one. Litzrer, lashon tzara. These two sisters, they become lasses as tzara zulazu, because this is the way the two wives that are married to one man, they hate each other, so therefore you're taking these two sisters that they should be hating one another. B'chayel, limedcha comes to teach you, she'im gersha, that let's say she got divorced. He cannot marry the sister as long as the sister is still alive. Verse 19. Vel isha benidas tumasa. So too, you must not approach. So too, a woman you must not approach to uncover her nakedness during her menstrual separation on the account of her defilement, because she's going to be tamei. Rashi. Oh, no Rashi. Verse 20. And you must not be in a marital way, have marital relationship with your neighbor's wife, causing yourself to become spiritually defiled by her. Verse 21, Umizaracha leisitein lahavir lamelech, and you must not give any of your offsprings to the priests of idolatry to pass them through, barefoot through the fire. You should not desecrate God's name. Ani Hashem, I am God. Rashi, La Moilech, what does La Moilech mean? Moilech is min avodah zarah. It's a type of idolatry. Sheshma Moilech, that was called Moilech. V'zui avodah zarah, and this was the way they served that idolatry. Moiser b'nei lekeimerim, they would give their child to the priests. Ve'oisen shtei meduras gedolos, they would make big fires, bonfires. Umavirin asaben beraglav, and they would walk the son on his barefoot. Bein shtei meduras ha'eish, between the two fires. Loisitein, don't give. Zui mesiras lekeimerim, means don't give it to the priests. Lahaver lamoilach zu avoras ha'eish, this means to take them through the fire. This concludes the Torah reading for Tuesday, Parshas Acharei Mos-Kedoshim.